The following program is a public access production. Comcast is required to provide time on this channel and make it available pursuant to franchise agreements with the communities we serve. Comcast is not affiliated with the following program or the producers of public access programming and is not responsible for the content. The following program does not reflect the opinions of Comcast or its affiliates.
Welcome back live from London. I'm Max Foster.
I'm Sasha Herman.
Now, an unlikely group is taking a shot at resolving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Several comedians want to use humour as a way to work towards peace.
Members of the Israeli-Palestinian Comedy Tour want to bring an end to the decades-old struggle in just a handful of shows. Ben Wiedemann has their story.
Yeah, go through security at their own.
What do you get when you bring together 3 Jews and an Arab in Jerusalem? A lot of laughs.
Crap out of them.
Truth is, I really became a Jew because between Christmas, Kwanzaa, and Hanukkah, I could just take December off.
2 of the Jews are converts from Catholicism.
Of course, I am a Jew by choice, as opposed to so many of you who had no choice. And when people find out that I converted, invariably they always want to know why. By which they really mean, what's wrong with you? You didn't have enough trouble? Were you just trying to be an extra credit target for a KKK sniper?
I'm the firstborn son of a manic depressive Italian woman and a pathologically silent Irishman. This makes me wildly emotional in a very quiet way. I look calm, I'm just going nuts on the inside. My aunt, though, was a nun, which makes Jesus my uncle.
One's an American who moved to Israel for the politics.
We have elections here all the time. Yeah, I've lived here 10 years. I voted 37 times. Yeah, that should be our slogan, move to Israel, vote a lot. You know, this is the only country in the world where the phrase term of office is only a suggestion.
And the Palestinian...
Any Arabs in the audience? All arrested already, huh?
lives in Chicago with his Jewish wife.
You guys should have been there at our wedding. We had 900 people. We only sent out 24 invitations. That was amazing. We had all the Arabs on one side, all the Jews on the other side. We didn't have a bridal party. We had a UN peacekeeping force right down the middle. On the Arab side, of course. And
this unlikely quartet, the first self-described Israeli-Palestinian Comedy Tour, has come together, they tell me, with an audacious, some might say comical, goal.
Yeah, you know, we want to resolve the Middle East conflict in 6 shows, and we got 4. A lot of pressure. You know, we got 2 more shows we're trying to book, and if we can do that, it'll be over.
Right. Since the best efforts of hyper-serious, self-important diplomats and politicians have so obviously failed, maybe
thanks, everybody.
These guys should give it a shot. Ben Wiedemann, CNN, Jerusalem.
From ABC News headquarters in New York, this is World News.
Good evening, I'm Dan Harris, and this is World News. Finally tonight, comedians doing their part for peace in the Middle East. 4 comedians to be exact, all Americans, and all of either Jewish or Palestinian heritage. This week, they're taking their act to Jerusalem. Here's ABC's Wilf Dinnick.
Any Arabs in the audience? Good security. Not bad.
This is not Ray Hanania's usual crowd.
Actually, I'm not just an Arab, I'm Palestinian, but all that means is I don't look at you as an audience. I like to think of you all as potential hostages.
These 4 Americans want to laugh together to show that both sides can live together.
This guy's a Palestinian. Get him!
1 is Palestinian, the other 3 are Jewish.
Just 4 comedians working together, but it's a start.
Yeah, because we haven't seen much of this before.
No, I don't think it's ever been done.
You've never seen a Palestinian and an Israeli on the same stage in comedy. First few times I got up to a checkpoint, I just threw some change at him and zipped right through. until they shot at me. I'm thinking, oh my God, they want to kill me because I don't have exact change.
This conflict has gone on so long, there seems to be no shortage of material.
I perform for a lot of Israeli organizations, B'nai B'rith, Hillel, the White House.
Tonight's show was in a synagogue in Jerusalem.
The beginning of a comb-over.
The next tour, they're promising to perform for the other side.
You tell me in the back, right? You can hardly tell with the kippah that I'm losing a little hair up top.
We have plans to go to some other Arab countries, me and the 3 hostages, no problem.
In the end, there were no hecklers and no one seemed offended. Just thankful for the chance to laugh for a change.
Here is somebody who said a lot of things out loud which had to be said, and they did it with good humor.
People don't really joke about this kind of stuff, the conflict that often.
Here?
You're kidding?
Oh, you're from ABC. You're not from here.
We're Jews. We invented humor.
There's no other way to live in this country.
It's survival.
You gotta laugh.
Right. We cry too.
Wilf Dinnick, ABC News, Jerusalem.
And if you want to hear some more of the jokes, you can go to our website, which is abcnews.com. And that is World News on this Sunday. I'm Dan Harris. For everyone here at ABC News, thank you for watching. Good night.
Israelis and Palestinian stand-ups have never appeared on the same stage together, ever. And I said, let's do it. And Ray said to me, do you really think we can?
No, I think my answer was, can we make money doing this? Will the Jewish people pay to see comedy?
Right.
Any Arabs in the audience? All right, good security at the theater. Is it warm in here, or am I the only one dressed for Poland in the 1700s?
Last Wednesday we had our first show in Israel was last Wednesday. We had a very, very funny opening actor, Moshe Katsav. Very, one of those wild, screaming comedians.
I read that one of the cable companies, they took off BBC News and they put in its place Al Jazeera in English. Yeah, the weird part of that is that they did a survey a couple weeks later, and they found out that nobody realized that they weren't still watching BBC News.
People ask, were you funny before you became Jewish? They get a little freaked out when they see me. They don't know what that means, a guy that looks like this.
I doubt if Lieberman would have want even me to be here. I think he pretty much wants only Ashkenazim.
There were the Palestinians were asking me the other day, why am I just performing here? Why aren't I performing in occupied Palestine? I said, this is Tel Aviv. It's occupied Palestine, isn't it? Just joking.
Okay. Did you know that 85% of Israelis, this was a recent survey, 85% of Israelis believe that the government is corrupt? That means that 15% of the country is completely out of touch with reality.
Our main intention of this whole tour is to create a situation where we can reopen the casino in Jericho. That's the only thing that I want. I don't care about peace. I want that casino opened again. I'm originally from Chicago. I moved here 10 years ago because my life was going too well.
And of course, when people find out that I'm a convert, people often ask, why? By which they really mean, what's wrong with you? You didn't have enough trouble? Were you really trying to be an extra credit target for a KKK sniper?
On the serious side, this is good. It's not about the jokes, it's about laughing. And about being together with 3 Jews in Israel so I don't get arrested in Tel Aviv.
You haven't? No.
Yeah,
very funny. Thought everyone had a really brought a lot of different perspectives. It was a great show. Very funny folks.
Have you seen Palestinian and Israeli comedians performing together before?
Never before.
You think it's a good thing?
I do. I think
Why?
it's fantastic.
Why?
Because I think they can bring comedy can bring a lot of it can kind of lighten up a dialogue between people that otherwise would not be able to speak in the same way. So.
Okay. Thanks very much. Thanks a lot. Okay.
Yes, we did. Yeah. Sure, loved it. I loved that there was great stand-up in Israel, which was terrific. I'm from Los Angeles, so went to the comedy club, and I just thought it was fantastic.
And what do you think of the idea of bringing Israeli and Palestinian?
I liked it very much. Yeah. I think it's very important to have both sides in laughter, both sides in laughter, not all the uptight things that we deal with on a daily basis, but to be able to laugh about it. I thought it was very well done. Very well done. Thank you.
I thought it was really funny. I thought that it was great how there's like a diverse set of people, and I just thought even their stories were generally really interesting, along with the humour that they brought to it.
How do you feel to see a Palestinian performing and making jokes about terror?
I thought it was great because it lightened the whole sort of like intifada issue going on, and I just think comedy is a really good way of like relieving the whole like tension situation in Israel that's going on at the moment. So yeah, I thought it was really good.
Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
How come you're not going to Ramallah, or occupied Palestine? I said, hey, I'm in Tel Aviv. This is occupied Palestine.
You know what, Ray? That's enough. It's enough. Enough with all the
Oh my God. I want to do. I got a Hey, wait.
Oh my God, Aaron. Oh.
Thank you for coming out. You've been a great audience.
From Algeria to Afghanistan, from Somalia to Saudi Arabia, from Israel to Iran, this is Mideast Week.
An Israeli Jew, an American Palestinian, a black convert and a former Catholic walk into a bar. It sounds like a joke, and in a way it is. A mixed group of Jewish and Arab stand-up comedians have joined forces in the Middle East with an unusual mission: to make people laugh. We caught up with them during a show at the American Colony Hotel in eastern Jerusalem. They were performing in front of a mixed audience of Jews, Arabs and foreigners. Charlie Waradi, the co-founder of the Israeli-Palestinian Comedy Tour, explains how the idea came about.
Ray Hanania, the Palestinian-American comedian, and I kind of connected through weird circumstances, and he was familiar with my podcast, which is Israelisms.com. And I'm familiar with his writing as a journalist. And it turned out, through Googling and things like that, that I found out that he and I were raised in the same neighborhood in Chicago. So I got in touch with him, and we started emailing back and forth. And, he told me that he was a fan of Israelisms, and I told him that I respected that. No, I told him that I liked his writing also, because he's very mainstream and really a good writer and very funny. Then it came out that he knew that I was a stand-up comedian, and he told me that he was doing stand-up comedy. And then it became the, wouldn't it be funny if situation. And, because it's never been done that a Palestinian and an Israeli comedians have been on the same stage. I mean, unless, you want to talk about, politicians. But they don't count because they're not trying to be funny. So it's the first time that anything like this has ever been done. And so Ray said, well, when do you want to do it? And I said, well, let's do it like now.
Ray Hanania, an American-born Palestinian, admits it's not easy making people laugh in a region where political, historical and religious tensions run deep.
I think there's a small group of people that just hate you. They hate you because you're Jewish, they hate you because you're Arab. You can't do anything about them, but the majority of people, I think, are moved by the emotions of events. The tragedy, they get emotional, they can't vent. You know, so they look like they're part of this anger. Those are the people, when you tell them jokes, when they laugh, you've won. If they laugh with you, it's over. And you know, this line for Comedy for Peace that I use is, if we can laugh together, we can live together. And it really works.
I'm not Iranian, I'm not Pakistani, I don't blow things up. I'm Arab. I pay people to do that.
Do Jews and Arabs have a similar sense of humor?
You know, it is. I mean, we actually have a similar topic to have a sense of humor about, and it is similar. It's self-deprecating a little bit. It's, you know, sharp political satire, social satire, cultural satire. Yeah, we talk about the same subjects that we both care about. That makes it so valid.
And they don't tell you everything about driving here. They don't give you the most important lessons, let me tell you. Yeah, I just got, like for instance, the first few times I drove up to a checkpoint, I just threw some change at him and zipped right through. Until they shot at me. Yeah, I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, they want to kill me because I don't have exact change.
Another member of the side-splitting lineup is Aaron Freeman, an Afro-American comedian who converted to Judaism. He finds that politics and religion provide him with ample material for his comedy routine.
I am generally a political comedian, which in America is redundant. So what I say that we as political comics, we don't write the jokes, we just vote for them like everybody else. That's just what we do.
Is it easy to make the Middle Eastern audience laugh?
It's generally easy to make human beings laugh. You know? You just kind of find out what they care about and poke at it. You go, ding, 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 ding. You tickle them. They'll either laugh or they'll shoot. And it just depends, you know, on the good day. If they like you, they laugh. They don't, they shoot.
Different people have a different criteria for who and who is not a Jew. I have my own, which I will share with you. In my view, if one thinks one is a Jew, if you think you're a Jew, you have to merely look into your own heart and ask yourself, do I love Jews? Do I love Jews without regard to philosophy or denomination? If the answer to that question is yes, you're not a Jew.
Last but not least is Yisrael Campbell, Catholic by birth but unmistakably Jewish by appearance. His conversion process is cleverly woven into his acts.
Converted to Judaism, I took my mother out to lunch afterwards, and in the middle of lunch I said, you know, Mom, someday I may become a rabbi. My Italian Catholic mother put down her fork and said, she'll do anything to avoid getting a real job. How did she know?
Most of my comedy is based on my own life and my own experience. So I don't do a lot of political stuff. I do some observational stuff. I really do one joke that's about Israel killed a Palestine, what was described in the Israeli media as that they had killed a master Hamas bomb maker.
I don't know if you remember this, about 3.5 years ago, the IDF killed a master Hamas bomb maker. Do you remember this? The guy had one arm and no legs. I'm going to say he wasn't a master bomb maker. I'm going to say he was a mildly proficient bomb maker at best.
We intend to resolve the Middle East conflict in 6 shows. And on the 7th show, we'll rest or get arrested. So that's it.
Now my wife is Jewish. And it's true. She's Jewish, I'm Palestinian. Our wedding, when we got married, we had 900 people. We only sent out 24 invitations. The wedding ceremony, just like this, we had all the Arab relatives on one side, all the Jewish relatives on another side. We didn't have a bridal party. We had a UN peacekeeping force right down the middle, situated on the Arab side. Okay?
For news and analysis from the Middle East, go to themedialine.org. The Media Line. Content, context, confidence.
One member of the team is an Arab-American columnist and author turned stand-up comedian. He served in the U.S. Air Force. He covered Chicago City Hall for years. He married a Jewish woman. His parents are Palestinian immigrants. The other member of the team is one of Chicago's best-known longtime comedians, as well as being a veteran writer and broadcast journalist. He is a black man who was brought up in Chicago Catholic schools and later converted to Judaism. Together, they are about to embark on what is known as the Israeli-Palestinian Comedy Tour. Now, what possibly could be funny or comedic about the conflicts in the Middle East? We'll put that question to Ray Hanania and Aaron Freeman next on Friday Night. Ray Hanania, welcome to Friday Night. Aaron Freeman,
thank you so
welcome
much.
to Friday Night.
Thank you, my brother.
Gentlemen, what's happening?
John, we, Ray and I, and along with 3 Israeli comedians, are going to end the Israeli-Palestinian conflict using jokes.
Which will then bring, that will string out to bring peace to the world, is that correct?
We read the Iraq Study Group report, and it said that the heart of it all is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and so we are going to go there and stop it all.
In one tour?
In one tour.
6 shows.
6 shows.
That is one perspective. Now, the other perspective could be, haven't these poor people suffered enough? And now you two and your colleagues are about to descend upon them. Please.
We are an amelioration of all the difficulties.
What you don't see is...
Amelioration. I love that. Thank you.
What you don't see is that they are laughing at night. I mean, during the day we just see them angry and everything, but at night they come together, they laugh, there's humor.
Especially
That's
Ray.
the way you stay alive.
Ray, I'm so glad that you brought that up because I've always felt that there should be a daytime universe. A government for daytime, and then an entirely different government for night.
Well, the peace process was basically 6 comedians on each side pretty much doing bad jokes. It never worked, so it...
But I think, Aaron, you've performed the Arab-Israeli Comedy Hour.
Well, I didn't actually. I directed the Arab.
You directed
I directed it.
And then, Ray, you are the co-founder of something called Comedy for Peace.
Right.
So it can be said that you guys have really been into this for many years.
And we've crossed the line. It's not just Arabs and Jews. I mean, it's actually Palestinians and Israelis.
Yes.
Because you will get suddenly there are a lot of Arab comedians that aren't really Arab, that are not even Palestinian, and there's a lot of getting together, but not with the real core group that needs to come together, Palestinians and Israelis. Those 2 people don't come together.
How did you guys meet?
How did we meet?
You were a guard at Guantanamo.
I think so, yeah. I was torturing him, and I wouldn't let him die. I wouldn't let him die.
This was justified. This was justifiable torture at this point.
Because somebody told me that somebody he knew was a terrorist.
Yeah.
So I had to torture him. I had to.
He is.
That's right. Of course.
He forced me to wear the leash, but the pantyhose I volunteered for that.
But seriously, as program
I don't know if
hosts
there's
say,
everything seriously in the Middle East.
No, we're serious.
No, we met years ago. You were. I was covering City Hall, and
he was covering a City Hall employee.
Yeah, right. He was one of the funniest guys that I had met, talking about City Hall in a very funny way. And you know, really, when it comes down to it, a lot of times people would come to City Hall and they'd see the serious side, but when the cameras were off, when the pens were down, you knew those guys at City Hall. They were very funny. Harry Golden, Bob Davis. Humor was part of...
These are the City Hall reporters.
Yeah, and humor was part of the everyday life of a journalist.
Then
you see a guy like
Harold, very funny.
So he comes in,
very funny.
And he was somebody that drew us into the humor. It was just funny. So that's how we met.
But were you doing, I mean, you're known, of course, for doing council wars back then.
Among very old people. I've known for doing council wars.
That is usually how people react, though. They start hearing the jokes, and it sounds serious. I'll do a thing about my wife, you know, Allison, who is Jewish. I love you, honey, by the way. I got to repeat that over.
A successfully married guy.
And after the show, people will come up and say, I'm so sorry to hear so many people were injured at your wedding. I go, no, it's a joke. Nobody was injured.
But do you find that your long-time coverage of City Hall, first for the Southtown Economist and then for the Sun-Times, do you find that that is really helpful as you try to understand what I think Aaron would agree with this word I'm about to use, the tribal politics of the Middle East?
Yeah, you know, I understood it even growing up, the politics, though, but the one thing I did understand from City Hall was that there was a lot of humor. Humor played a big role in, you know, defining me as a journalist, because a lot of people say, well, geez, you were a serious journalist. How'd you get into comedy?
How did you get into comedy?
It was the only job I could get.
But it's after 9/11, and you're having lunch at Columbia College, right?
Right. I'm there with Todd Whitman, who was used to be a producer of your show.
Produced Cup
and
Show
he
for a
comes
long
up
time?
and asks me why my people bombed the World Trade Center. I'm going, my people? You mean the people from the south side of Chicago? Oh, you mean those other my people? I mean, how many my people I have? And instead of giving him a straight answer, I just said, look, I've just been cavity searched 4 times coming into this room. I don't need any more of this grief, okay? Just let me
You really
through.
got a lot of that. You got a lot of that prior to 9/11.
Well, it was. You know, there was a lot of.
Was written.
That is correct.
That was after the Murrah Federal Building bombing.
That's right.
They blamed all the Arabs for that.
Right.
And we all know it was those Scottish bees that
You know,
did it. You can't trust those people.
You know, the Scotland Study Group.
You've written about this in your book. I'm glad I look like a terrorist. Growing Up Arab in America, Humor and Reality in Ethnic American Experience, the longest book title in the history.
Well, you left out the other part, right? It's all in there, right?
Yeah. But the point is, so what happened after that lunch, where you were presumed to have brought down the World Trade Center?
Right. I decided that there was no serious answer to what was being thrown at me, that you just couldn't answer the question until a way that would say. I had a woman come up to me and say, well, I can't believe you abandoned your Christian faith to become an Arab. You know, how do you, it's true, and you know, the reality is, how do you tell a woman like that, no, ma'am, I'm sorry, you know, it's wrong.
Well, we're presuming that you're Muslim and you're a Christian. I mean, didn't you go to Lutheran churches when you were a kid?
My parents were Orthodox. I went to the Lutheran church. I remember when my mom was from Bethlehem. We were trying to find a church. We went to the Baptist church, but the priest was always hitting on my mom. We went to the Catholic church. The priest was always hitting on me. So we settled on the Protestant church because they're always just beating up on each other, those 4 groups of Protestants.
But you guys have something in common because your family came out of Mississippi.
Absolutely.
Was this not a Baptist background?
My grandfather, the Reverend A. Freeman, was as fire and brimstone a minister as you could, which is why I'm so comfortable in West Rogers Park with the Orthodox Jews, because those guys are anti-fun too. No, they're not anti-fun. We love the down in the West Rogers Park in the hood. They're all very nice guys, and I don't mean to belittle it.
But then you came up.
I did.
And by the time you were what, 3rd grade, you were. Your mother got you into Roman Catholic schools.
As you know, the Catholics were so active on the west side of Chicago, because that was during the days of Benjamin C. Willis, when they didn't want Negroes, we didn't want colored, we weren't black then.
Just to remember his earlier question, didn't we meet in the 60s when you bought our home and we fled to the suburbs?
I think so. I think that was it. That was my mom.
I think that's how we met.
You lived on South Shore at that time.
Pill Hill. Actually, I lived in Bill Hill, next to Pill Hill.
But I actually would never have gone as a West Sider. I would never have visited you because you were a South Sider.
Yeah. But okay, so the Catholic Church in those days was against Ben Willis's. What were those little?
They were an alternative. Willis wagons.
Willis wagons. Those were those little temporary.
When they were first integrating the Chicago school, they didn't have
enough school. You didn't realize what great architecture that was, a kind of flexibility that Ben Willis was trying to provide for you.
Well, my mom was a simple woman. She didn't really get it. No, she didn't understand. So we went to Catholic school because they offered
And this was a life-altering, life-enhancing experience for you, if I recall correctly.
You know, because I didn't feel guilty at all before I got to Catholic schools. I mean, I didn't understand what guilt was, but then I, became an expert.
And then you switched to Judaism, so now you are a giant of guilt.
I'm a teacher.
but we've talked about this before. You said that you didn't like, I think you said to me once that you didn't like the conclusion. The Catholic Church in the end was great for you educationally, but they didn't have answers. And that kind of that Judaism began to give you something that was that you had to say thank you so much in the Jewish tradition.
Yes,
you had to be grateful that it got you out of this when am I going to get another car mode that you otherwise would be in?
Well, that was not why I became Jewish, but that is why I remain an observant Jew. But the gratitude thing is a very big deal, and the Jews are really required 100 times a day to go, oh, sure, I'm glad I woke up. Oh, sure, I'm glad I got a glass of water.
But then why did you become Jewish?
For the food.
Which you stole from us.
That's right, certainly.
What are your fondest hopes for this trip?
You know, we just want to be funny. We want to make audiences laugh. I want to also send a message that you just shouldn't be afraid of Arab comedy because, Arabs are part of this country. The United States needs to open the door to us. We should have a TV show. Everyone Loves Abdullah or Married with 30 Children.
No, I'm with Ray. The goal of any comedian is the first destiny of all of it is to make them laugh. You make them laugh and then we're happy.
You make me laugh.